You said you'd come. Now let's hope you're not too late.
We know each other. He's a friend from work.
Long talks. Long talks. Talk just a little bit, just for the sake of it. Say what you think of it. Long talks. Long talks. Talk just a little bit, just for the sake of it. Say what you think of it. Long talks. Long talks. Talk just a little bit, just for the sake of it. Say what you think of it.
Welcome to Jumanji.
Hello, welcome to episode number 67 of the Wulong Talks podcast. My name is Jason, I'm the host of the show, as you know. And tonight I'm not joined by the Wrestling Kid, aka Rich Kid, unfortunately. I know, it's kind of sad and quiet without him, but yeah, he couldn't make it tonight, unfortunately, so it's just me flying solo. Again, if you don't like the sound of my voice, you probably want to switch off now. But I'm sure that's not going to be a problem for y'all. Thank you for joining us. And if you're joining us for the first time, by the way, welcome. What we do here is we consider ourselves Black, British and geeky. That means we give you our kind of geeky and Black perspective on movies, comic books, video games, TV shows, and basically everything else in between, and everything and anything that covers kind of the gamut of pop culture, really. Myself, I haven't been able to do a lot of recordings recently, so unfortunately there hasn't been a lot of new podcast material. Now, as you know, for those of you who've been listening, I had my son about 3 months ago, and he's just been wonderful. He's just been so much joy, and he's brought so much joy to me and my wife, and he's made us a proper little family. But unfortunately, that means it doesn't leave a lot of time for recording. He's currently teething at the moment, and he can be a bit ratty. So, yeah, that's a challenge and a half. But one of the things that having him around has done is it's given me the opportunity to actually watch a lot of stuff, which is something I haven't been able to do up until this point. But I've been catching up on a lot of movies and TV shows, and loads of things that I missed at the cinema I've been able to actually go out and catch up on, funnily enough. But one of the things we've also done a lot of is be together as a family and kind of watch stuff on TV too. One of the things I've really enjoyed doing with him is watching anime, which I know sounds weird, but stay with me. There is a point to it, and I will get to that point very soon. But before we do that, let me first of all tell you that we also went to go and see a manga exhibition at the British Museum here in London. And I have to say, if you're based in London, or if you ever get to visit London and you're a manga fan, you absolutely have to go to this exhibition. As said, it's at the British Museum. It's on until the end of August. And essentially, it's just a collection of some of the great kind of original works and concept designs for a lot of the manga that you would know and love. Along with some titles that maybe you haven't quite heard of, but it literally carries it runs the whole gamut of everything that you would expect. So it's got stuff like Captain Tsubasa, which is just an absolute classic and something that I adore from my childhood. It's got a big focus on Studio Ghibli. It's got stuff about Attack on Titan, Dragon Ball Z, Professional Golgo 13, like loads of stuff, like stuff that you've probably forgotten about, because I know I had. And it's just wonderful, really. It took me way back to my childhood being there, and it's so vivid because each, not a single space within the exhibit is wasted. Everything is in some way, kind of given over to the art form of manga, and it shows you kind of how far this Japanese art has traveled across the world, and the influence that it has on many artists and writers who are working in the fields that we love today. So it's definitely worth going to check out if you want a fun day out. So head to the British Museum website. You can find out some more information about it there. I wholeheartedly recommend it. Now, as I said, one of the things that I have been able to do since being with my son is catch up on a lot of TV, and in particular, I've been watching a lot of anime. He's getting to the age where he's starting to become aware of the television, and he gets kind of attracted to sort of like bright lights and fast movements and things like that. And he's actually talking to the television as well. Well, not so much talking because he's 3.5 months old. He's kind of shouting or babbling at the TV, but it's quite hilarious because he seems to respond to certain types of things that he sees on the screen, which is just funny as hell for me. But one of the things he loves is anime. And I recently signed up to Crunchyroll, which is the online anime streaming service. Um, and yeah, I've really enjoyed it, and he's really enjoyed it too. For those of you that don't know, Crunchyroll is basically like an anime version of Netflix. So if you can imagine that in your head, then yeah, that's what it is. Crunchyroll itself is pretty good as an app, although I'd say it's very rough around the edges in some ways. The interface isn't quite as user friendly as I think it could be, and I think they could certainly take a page out of the leaf, out of the Netflix playbook, really, from that, because it's really not quite the smooth experience that it should be. Um, what I do like though is that it does have a massive back catalogue of animes that you can catch up on. And that's what the boy and I have been doing. We've been just powering through as many series as possible. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the ones that he and I have kind of responded to and have enjoyed a lot. One of the first ones that we actually got into was Phoenix Wright, Ace Attorney. Now, for those of you who've had a Nintendo Game Boy at any point, or just a Japanese video game aficionado, you'll know Phoenix Wright is, one of the classic sort of Nintendo titles. I believe there's been 3 games. I'm not 100% sure. You can correct me on that if I'm wrong, because I've only played the first one of the games in the series, but I know there's more than one. And yeah, basically there's an adaptation of those video games that's been done in anime form. And it's a bit slow going at first, but it's actually surprisingly entertaining once you get into it. He and I both kind of struggled with it. At first, he liked the theme music because the theme music is very peppy, very loud, and the visuals are all very colourful on the intro theme. So yeah, that got his attention, and it certainly got mine as well. But yeah, it is a bit it's a bit hard going in a sense that if you're used to a certain type of anime, so if you're not somebody who is keen on kind of sort of light humor and silly humor and things like that, then it's something that will irritate you pretty quickly. But for me, I don't have an issue with that. I've always been quite happy to enjoy a little bit of craziness and a little bit of silliness with my anime. I'm somebody who actually can go from instead of watching something like Phoenix Wright and then go to watching Death Note. And again, it's not like a lot of these more serious animes don't embrace the humor elements anyway. They do. They go out of their way to do it. So, it shouldn't be too much of an issue for you if that's the kind of thing that you're into. But what I would say is, Phoenix Wright is definitely worth a watch. It does capture a lot of the elements of the game, and it does quite well to sort of translate that onto the big screen or the small screen, so to speak. So there's lots of the catchphrases and things like that come in from the original game are there. So in that sense, it's a good experience. I would say if, as said, you're into something that's quite light, or you're looking for something that's quite light, you're looking for something that's fun, easy to pick up, then Phoenix Wright is definitely one to go along with. And as said, if you're a fan of the game, then you'll absolutely love it because it's a very, very faithful adaptation of the original game. So definitely worth checking out. So aside from Phoenix Wright, I've also been catching up with Attack on Titan. Now, again, for those of you who've been listening to the show for a while, like Attack on Titan is my jam. I love that shit. I've been following that ever since the first series dropped a couple of years ago. And Yeah, man, that story is getting meaty now. I know there's quite a few of you out there that do watch Attack on Titan, so I'm not going to spoil anything of the story. Suffice to say that, yeah, business is picking up. It's really picking up. But Attack on Titan continues to do the things that it does very well, very well. So it is very watchable. The action is brilliant. The scary elements and the tension are played up really, really well too. Um, the characters are not really developing that much, but with a show like this, you kind of watch it more not because you expect character development, but because you want to see cool characters do cool stuff, and that's basically what they do within this show. And as said, one of the big strengths of the show is the set pieces. And those are amazing. I mean, how the animators managed to pull off, kind of the battle scenes that they do, I'll never know, and I'll continue to be in awe of them. The storyline is also quite satisfying as well. So if you're one of those who is disappointed by Game of Thrones' final season, Attack on Titan might be the thing that fills that Game of Thrones hole for you, because it does a similar type of thing, but to me, in my opinion, it does it better. It's a little bit more convincing and a bit more believable, and it certainly doesn't make its characters do strange things for no apparent reason. So, yeah, definitely check out Attack on Titan. Season 3 is what we've been watching recently, and yeah, I've really, really enjoyed it. I'm all up to date with that, so I'm pleased as punch, and I'm looking forward to the next episode, which I think is out on Monday on Crunchyroll. So yeah, Monday. Look out for that on Monday online, and it should be up there. Another show that I've really been getting into as well has been One Punch Man. Now, shonen is kind of a divisive genre within the anime fraternity. There's some people that really don't like shonen. Shonen, by the way, is kind of like a subgenre of anime for those that don't know, and it basically kind of focuses on combat and fighting and martial arts and sort of things like that. And One Punch Man, I mean, you may have heard the name before for those of you not familiar with anime, but One Punch Man is effectively it's like a superhero parody, I guess is the best way to describe it. In a sense that you have this key character, this character known as One Punch Man, who basically just trains himself to become a superhero and becomes so good at it that he can defeat his enemies with a single punch. What this show does really, really fantastically well, though, is instead of just kind of focusing solely on the gimmick of the one punch, it actually goes a little bit further into delving what being that type of person would mean for the average Joe. Because the hero Saitama is pretty much an average Joe in every other facet of his life. And he struggles with kind of almost depression and melancholy because he can't get a decent fight anywhere, because as soon as he gets into a confrontation with a supervillain or a bad guy, he ends it with one punch and then that's it. And it's really quite touching, quite clever, and quite humorous the way that is explored within One Punch Man. So it's definitely, I would say, a series for people who are looking for something a bit unexpected, and perhaps weren't, looking for the typical anime, shall we say, something that subverts expectations almost. That's definitely what One Punch Man does. It definitely will subvert your expectations. So I would say absolutely go and check out One Punch Man as well. And it's damn funny as well. Like, it really is. It's the comedy just translates so well. The humor is one of those things that can be hard to kind of translate to different audiences, because sometimes some humor relies on cultural references that are very specific that you can't pick up as an outsider if you're not from that culture. but One Punch Man is pretty much universal in terms of how it pulls off its humor, and it does it superbly well, as said. So absolutely go and check out One Punch Man as well if you haven't. And if you have and you are a One Punch Man fan, please get in touch, man, because I'd love to chat to you. I want to gas about One Punch Man with somebody. So if you're listening to the end of this podcast recording, you'll find a little bit of contact details there, which will let you know how you can get in touch with us. So aside from One Punch Man, I've also been trying to check out some slightly different anime as well, because one of the things that people perhaps overlook about the anime genre, for those who don't know it, is that it can actually be kind of quite diverse. There can be a lot of different types of anime that you can come across. So, I mentioned earlier shonen, which is kind of like a subgenre. But you also get, different things like romance, you get comedy, you get horror, you get a lot of different types of things going on, as said, within the anime genre. And one of the animes that I discovered and was really surprised by was one called 91 Days. It's basically a gangster thriller, I would say, set in the Prohibition era. And it's about a character whose family is murdered by a mafia crime family who are trying to get some information from the father of this family, and they're all murdered apart from one of the children, a young boy who witnesses the whole thing and manages to escape. And then the young boy basically dedicates himself to getting revenge against this mafia family. And what plays out over the course of the series of 91 Days is basically this Machiavellian kind of scheme that this character pulls off to, kind of reel all of these disparate elements together, all of the people who were involved in his family's murder. By the time he grows to a man, by the time he's sort of 18, 19, obviously a great number of years has passed since the event. So he has to set in motion a series of events to try and draw these people out from hiding or retirement, or from, joining, who've joined different gangs and have moved on, to try and exact this vengeance. And all of this is happening across the backdrop of, as said, the Prohibition era in the United States, which was when alcohol consumption and sale was banned in the United States. So behind all of that, in the background, is these confrontations between different mafia families who are all vying over this one piece of turf called the island, which is where a lot of the kind of big booze markets are, the illegal booze markets are. So they're all kind of trying to get a piece of that pie, basically. And it's really, really well done, like magnificently well done. I mean, the writers have obviously paid attention and have done their research in terms of the gangster genre, because all of the tropes that you like from that are there and present. But as said, what they've also done is they've weaved together a really interesting plot featuring the main character's journey and what he has to go through, as said, in order to enact this revenge that he set out to achieve. And it's really gripping. It's a really, really interesting plot as well. The voice character work on it is excellent. The character designs are really good. There's a really stark kind of design and a sparseness to the character designs, which really works well for the subject matter and for the era that it's based in as well. So 91 Days is definitely a very gripping watch, and if you're a fan of kind of thrillers and things like that, then I would definitely recommend 91 Days to you and say you've got to go and check that one out. The other show that I've been checking out as well is another one which is kind of just twisting my melon. I mean, I haven't finished it yet, and it's one I've not watched with Quincy because, yeah, it's a bit violent and a bit crazy. But this one is called Angels of Death. And what I like about it is the craziness of it almost. So basically, it's like a kind of psychological / survivor horror. It kind of takes its influences, I guess, from things like Saw and sort of survival horror series like that. Effectively, there is a main character, a young lady who wakes up in the basement of a hospital, with no real memory of sort of who she is and why she's there. She's got vague kind of bits of pieces of information in her memory about, why she's in the hospital, but a lot of the detail behind it is missing. And when she comes to, she realizes she's trapped in the basement with a serial killer, who's trying to kill her. And she is just trying to basically avoid the serial killer, obviously, who wants to carve her into pieces, who's just insane. But then they discover that they're not alone in the basement and that there is somebody else who's there, a doctor. And it turns out the doctor is also a serial killer. So the two of them kind of team up. They manage to kill the crazy doctor, and then basically decide that they're going to try and get out. And they make an agreement. And the girl says to the serial killer that she's going to allow the serial killer to kill her if he helps her to get out of the building, basically, that they're in. And then what follows is kind of their journey as they go up through this building. And what they discover is that every level and every floor that they arrive on, there's another killer on that floor who has some kind of weird mental tic or some kind of psychosis or something that's trying to kill them. And so basically they've got to survive the killer on that floor, find a way to defeat them, and then a way to move up to the next floor. It's kind of crazy, as said. It's a bit kind of like, I think it's a bit like Dread in a way, in terms of, kind of working your way up a building with a bunch of baddies, a bit like The Raid. But as said, these characters are messed up, man. They're really twisted up. Watching it kind of messed with my head quite a bit. I won't lie. Yeah, it really did. And I found it a bit of a tough watch at times because it's hard to kind of completely empathize with the characters. But that's kind of what I've realized is so good about the show, is the fact that, just when you think you're able to empathize with somebody and you kind of let your guard down a bit and go, oh, this is a semi-normal person, they then go and do some crazy evil shit, and you're just like, no, actually, you're just as messed up as everyone else. And it's kind of cool and refreshing, really, because we often kind of, end up with TV shows and movies where, the good guys and bad guys are clearly defined and there's no kind of grey area in the middle. But what this show does really well is it plays in the grey area, and that's what makes it, such an interesting and fascinating watch, really, for me. So, those are the things that we've seen so far on Crunchyroll. There's some other stuff that I've got saved on my playlist as well that I haven't started yet. There's a Blade Runner anime. I think it's called Blade Runner 2029. I think it's like a prequel to the movie that came out a couple of years ago. So I'm going to sit down and check that out at some point because I've heard good things about that. And there's a few others on there. There's GTO, Great Teacher Onizuka, which is just my favorite. It's my favorite stuff. I mean, speaking of mangas earlier, I got into that via the manga. And GTO is just amazing, man. It's so funny. It's absolutely, completely and utterly politically incorrect. It's something that I don't think you could ever pick up much of an audience for outside of, a very niche crowd, because as I said, it's absolutely not politically correct. But that's kind of part of its charm, and it's a child of its time, I guess. It came out sort of in the mid-90s. And it's very much kind of based around the attitudes of that era. And I suppose the characters in it are quite childlike and childish as well, so you kind of expect that too. But it's a bit of a niche one, GTO. But I'll definitely come back with you with my full thoughts on that once I've finished that series as well. I said that's about it, really. So, Quincy and I have been enjoying watching Crunchyroll and watching our animes, and we've had a good time with it, man. It's been a lot of fun. What I will do is I'll try and keep you guys updated with some of the other things we've been watching as well. I know I haven't been able to do the Is It Worth a Tenner reviews recently, and I do apologize for that. What I'll do is maybe I'll try and package a couple of reviews together next week, so we can get some of those out, especially with Spider-Man Far From Home coming out as well. So we'll try and get a few of those together. And hopefully the next time you hear me, the Russian kid will be back with me as well. So we'll have some company here and you won't have to listen to my voice droning on and on about anime all the time. But yeah, that's it. I'm going to leave you with that. Thanks a lot for listening. Make sure you subscribe wherever you are listening to us. If you haven't left us a review on iTunes as well, please do consider doing that, because it really does help get the word out for what we're doing, and it helps other people find us. And if you know people who might enjoy what we're doing, then by all means give them our website address, give them our podcast channel address, and have them subscribe and have a listen. And also, as said, we love to hear from you too. We are interactive, so make sure you stay tuned to the end of this podcast and you'll hear how to contact us. Okay, that's it from me. I'm out of here. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you again soon. Peace. Thanks for listening to us. If you're down with Wulong Talks, show some love by following us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Wulong Talks. You can also find us online at www.wulongtalks.com or drop us an email at wulongtalkspodcast@gmail.com. We can also be found as part of the Britpod Scene Collective, and we're also officially E14 endorsed. Search for those hashtags to enjoy more content from us and from other great British podcasters.